Now, an African Youth Nuclear Summit is currently underway in Centurion in Gauteng. It's a biannual event that gathers, and this gathering brings together young professionals in the nuclear industry across the African continent and further afield. Hosted by the South African Young Nuclear Professional Society, this year's summit is engaging under the theme Unlocking the Potential of Nuclear Science and Technology Applications within Africa. Well, to tell us a little bit more, and I'm joined by Mr. Israel Sekoko, who's and also Emmanuel Montwedi from the South African Young Nuclear Professional Society, and Evelyn Achieng, who's the Deputy President of the African Young Generation in Nuclear, all the way from Nairobi in Kenya. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, gents. To you guys, hola hola, and to you, kwaheri. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome. Let me start with you, Israel, because you're the host of this event.
Yes.
Every 2 years, you come together to do what?
So, thank you very much, Peter, and good afternoon to your viewers. South Africa is the only, power station, in the African continent, and then we've been running a Safari nuclear research reactor for more than 50 years. But we also realize that most of the African countries are really aspiring to build nuclear power stations, and they also, are looking at, potential application of nuclear, and we also realize that the youth of this continent actually, they need to come together, and work together and share ideas, and also, our experience, and to ensure that, from the experiences that we have from South Africa, we can also, share with the entire continent. So it's a biannual event. The first event was in 2016 in Kenya. It was very successful. We are currently in day number 2 of the summit, and it has been very successful. It's been very great. We have, more than 10 countries from the continent, and also international delegates actually participating at the summit.
All right, sounds fascinating. Well, let's explore this idea. I mean, as you say, South Africa fairly advanced. We had even nuclear weapon capabilities at one stage. What about Kenya and East Africa in general? Where are you in terms of nuclear capability? I suppose right now you use it in things like medicine and so on and so forth, but energy, not yet.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me here. East Africa, we are making milestones, and I think we are doing really great right now. But we're starting with the peaceful uses of nuclear. We're starting with healthcare, because as you know now, cancer is on the rise, and it's carrying everyone, and I think we need to step up and find ways of diagnostic and treating people. So I think Kenya right now, we've already identified the potential sites for nuclear, and we're making milestones. We're engaging our political leaders, and even next week we're having a nuclear business platform that is going to involve all the African countries. So I think we're moving on, and we're inviting our neighbors like Uganda and Tanzania, and also Ethiopia has some progress towards starting their own nuclear power plant.
All right, so you're at a nuclear power plant and working at Nexa. So what can you tell us about what you know that you're sharing? I mean, is this almost like, I guess, a lot of excitement when they meet people like you to talk about what you do?
Thank you, Peter. I think, nuclear is a little bit of a contested field. It needs to be demystified a little bit. So when fellow African youth sit and they can say, okay, this guy, he's fairly young, he's a nuclear engineer, I can touch him, he's here. He's not a geek, he's a normal guy. So we are sharing our experience with our fellow African countries, and what we think they can do that we have done already, so that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. That is kind of at the heart of the summit.
Okay. So Israel, for a whole week, you're going to be listening to a lot of people. What kind of speakers are coming through, and what sort of knowledge are they sharing?
So we have speakers from the International Atomic Energy Agency, from the World Nuclear University. We had various speakers from our stakeholders locally, from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. We also had speakers from the South African Nuclear Energy Corporation, from the National Radioactive Waste Disposal Institute, from ESCOM. all the stakeholders are participating. We also have, the group chief executives from, some of the state-owned entities actually sharing their support and their knowledge and, encouraging the youth actually, to take, career in the nuclear profession.
All right. So, Evelyn, I'm curious. There's a big debate on in the world at the moment about not going the nuclear route and going green, putting up windmills and so on and so forth. What's the conversation in East Africa, particularly where you haven't really done a lot of things yet? Are you going to continue with this growth?
I think there's a high demand for electricity right now, and I think our governments have been convinced that the renewable energy that they've been providing to the public is not meeting to the demands of the people. And I think they are coming up and finding feasible solutions for our energy crisis in East Africa. I think they're opening up, and our political leaders are very receptive to this message of nuclear, and we are doing good, and I think we're getting there.
And you're going to continue along this path?
Yes, we are definitely going to have nuclear power plants.
All right, so the integrated resource plan still being debated. The President earlier today saying that it'll come out for public debate soon. Do you think that we will grow the nuclear industry in South Africa?
Well, the Minister did mention that he wants an energy mix that is inclusive. So he doesn't want to run into a trap of us destroying the capacity that we have today. So there's a space for nuclear power in the IRP, and they should be. But all we can do is wait and see, and the cabinet will decide.
I'm going to ask you as well, because you're a young engineer.
Yes.
Are there enough of you coming through the system? Because it's one thing to develop technologies, but if the skills are not growing at the same pace, and this is something that we're seeing in the airline industry at the moment, there's a massive shortage of pilots, and yet planes are being built. Are we going in the same direction? Are your peers at universities going through this pipeline?
Yes, Peter, if you've checked the news previously, South Africa sent about 50 people to China in the past 4 years to go and train and get hands-on experience, right? And then we send a lot of students abroad, Russia, and the USA, South Korea, and many other countries that are advanced with the technology. In South Africa, locally, we have the Northwest University, WETS, UCT, and the University of Johannesburg. So we are training young professionals, we are training students, we are even inviting school kids to this kind of event so that they can get inspired. So the long and short, we have enough skills, we are building them at the right pace. And in fact, South Africa has had a lot of world-class nuclear scientists and engineers who are building nuclear capacities of other countries. So the skills are there.
So it's the skills are there, he says. How do we compare with the rest of the world?
So, Peter, as I said, we've operated a nuclear power plant for more than 30 years, the only nuclear power station in Africa. We are planning to extend the life of that power station by another 20 years. I'm one of those lucky products that actually comes from those universities. I was actually trained to actually, to be one of those guys that will actually, operate and play a big role in the nuclear industry from our local universities. So the skills are there. We've got people, and then we continue to train our people. I think if I can give you an example, at ESCOM, we have what we call Project 100. They've sent 100, guys to actually learn how to operate a nuclear power plant, and then they'll get that skill, they'll get certified, and then if it happens that we build or we extend the life of Kubex, an example, we will have that a number of resources available. And South Africa has been gearing itself for a nuclear program for a very long time. So since 2007 or 2008, we started training people. So actually, we are now having people that are not, employed because we haven't really.
But they're sitting with a skill waiting to be deployed.
Yes, they are waiting to be deployed.
All right. So, South Africa's been on this journey a long time already. Your country, Kenya, maybe even the region, I suppose there's this situation where you have to build the skills, but at the same time develop the industry. Are you keeping pace with the level of development that your country's at?
Yeah, I think we're keeping pace. We're also sending out professionals to go and be trained abroad. And we also have our own nuclear institute that is trying to build capacity on the ground. So I think we are trying to also learn from other countries like South Africa. The fact that I'm here, I'm also learning around. And on Friday, we'll have a technical tour to the power station and also learn and also take the skills back and the report back and see how we can gather up all these skills we have to to build our own power plants.
All right. You're a young woman. And the other issue, of course, always when we talk about science, is just how many women are coming through, particularly in this nuclear world.
I think many women in Kenya particularly are really interested in science, nuclear and technology, and the numbers are building up, though of course the men are more than us, but I think we're coming up, especially me in the medical field. I think many women are easily coming into the science field, so it's a good number.
So is it changing face here, the gender issue?
I think the gender issue is something that the government actually is really serious about, and you know, we have to ensure that we balance and then we have equitable representation of women in the industry. I think it's getting better from where I'm working. I'm based at Quebec. I think it's getting better, but I mean, obviously we can continuously improve. One aspect that you talked about, if you look at all the countries that are actually trying to go nuclear now, we are at this point in time hosting delegates from Ghana in Cape Town. We are training them for 2 weeks, you know, and on the work that we've done previously, we're sharing with them, you know, our knowledge and experience. And the idea is that, you know, we at the bottom part of South Africa, we don't have to allow our African brothers to go to Europe, Asia, you know, the skills is here, the knowledge is here. So we're trying to ensure that capacity, you know, is there.
How much are we, and I'm not sure who to pose this question to, but how much are we contributing to knowledge? In other words, what unique solutions are we developing in Africa? I think about what you did in Kenya with the M-Pesa, mobile money. What have we done with nuclear in the continent that perhaps the world is saying, okay, this aspect of our global knowledge has come from this continent? Is that happening?
If you follow South Africa's nuclear program from during the apartheid era, we had a nuclear weapons program. We then managed as NEXA to go from dismantling these weapons to making something that can save lives from that. So we have a company called NTP, which is one of the biggest supplier of nuclear medical radioisotopes, right? So, and that's unique to South Africa. We have a significant share of the global market, I think 10%. And, you know, it's just world class. We are one of the best in the world, so that we can brag about.
Okay.
At some point, actually, South Africa was leading the pack with the technology they call the pebble bed modular reactor.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think that technology now has been looked at in China, but actually South Africa is still looking at that technology. They're calling it now the advanced high temperature reactors. So that's one aspect, you know, where we actually, you know, can, you know, build and grow and be proud. But you know, it's not only from the nuclear energy power production only, but I mean we're looking at different aspects in hydro, you know, water desalination and all those things. You know.
Medical, as Evelyn was saying.
Yes, yeah.
So you've still got a few more days to go. What are you hoping by the time you're done that you'll be able to take back home to Kenya, for example?
I think I would really want to learn how their journey of nuclear power plants and how we can start it in Kenya. I think it's important that we, as you said, we don't go abroad and learn. We can learn from our own brothers and sisters in Africa. So I think I would, through the technical tours on Friday, I really want to see how they're doing it in their hospitals, how many cancer patients are they having, how many are they treating, what is the diagnostic models and all that. So I think I'm really looking forward to that.
Very briefly, what do you hope that as a group, as young people, by Friday when it ends, what will have happened?
Well, I hope as young people will ignite something inside of us to go back and advocate for this wonderful technology, learn to work together and grow, you know, the nuclear industry for energy security, electricity and medical applications. We just need to work together, get the network and support each other. I'm hoping for that.
Deputy President?
So for me, the very first thing really is to create that network and to ensure that we can collaborate we can share knowledge. But, you know, the most important thing is that I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I met with the guy who's actually busy with the detail side characterization in Kenya, and I told him, look, we've done this in South Africa. I'm one of those guys that has done that. If you need something, come to me, you know, talk to me. So that's the starting point. But the other thing is training opportunities. You know, people don't know the opportunities that exist there. You know, and then some of the guys that comes out of university, they struggle to register as professional engineers. They struggle to register as professional scientists. So we want to make sure that, you know, we have that network where, you know, we can encourage mentorship, we can encourage coaching, we can show that, you know, we share information, and then we can collaborate.
Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much indeed for coming through. I wish you the best with the rest of your deliberations, and we're encouraged to see such young, bright talent, and I'm sure that our continent is in safe hands with you at the helm. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you
so much.
Asante. All right, so that's where we're going to leave that discussion. Young people in nuclear across the continent and beyond, gathering in Centurion, talking about how to harness this knowledge and these applications, particularly in the environment that we find ourselves in now on the continent.